Hi, Collective. Welcome back to Masterful Divine Feminine 333. For any of you that may be feeling stuck, you may be asking yourself, what am I more afraid of, my past or my future? I do think that there are some important messages here for you to help you get clarity as to why you're feeling stuck, why you are probably thinking that staying in your current situation or current environment may be in your best interest, or if you are simply just afraid of taking the next step because you don't know what the future holds. You may not feel like you have the resources to move forward into a new direction. You may not feel like you have the resources yet to help you align yourself in moving in a new direction. But it's interesting that I said align yourself because I think that's what you need to do. I think you need to energetically, maybe even physically, align yourself with where it is that you're trying to go. So, for those of you that are possibly thinking about ending a relationship, or you may be thinking about changing a job, that's what I'm picking up mostly, or moving any sort of change that you're thinking about. It may not be something that you're ready to do tomorrow. It may not be something that can happen tomorrow, because what I'm actually getting is that there's some work that you need to do in the current energy that you're in to align yourself with the energy of moving out, moving on, right? Okay, so far we got Sisterhood. A card wanted to come out, but it popped right back in. Sisterhood, discipline, right? So it's like, even if your environment is not supportive of what you want, it's about being disciplined within yourself and being disciplined with what you can control. And what I also love about this discipline card, you may or may not be able to see, it has all of the moon phases, right? So the moon goes through phases, is always a reminder that we go through phases in life and in particular circumstances that we're dealing with. It's also an important reminder to use the moon phases to align yourself with the energy, right? Like releasing and manifesting during the new moon and a full moon. So there are like moon apps that you can download, which sometimes gives really good advice on what spiritual practices you can do during the phases to help you better manifest. Okay, I'm going to save these two that came out. So if you're asking yourself, what am I afraid of? If you're not sure if you're afraid of just moving on, or are you more afraid of staying in the past? For most of you, I think you want to move on, but the reason that you're stuck, well, one of the reasons that you're stuck is because you haven't fully come into alignment yet in that energy of moving on. So while it will be difficult, it is very possible to align yourself in the environment that you're in. So if you're in a household and you are wanting to divorce your spouse, you want to separate from your spouse, you may or may not be married. If you are in an extremely toxic, now I'm getting family situation and you want to move out, it's like, what is it that I need to do? What tools do I need to gather to create this masterpiece that I want? So that's so interesting. So we have Sisterhood, which is community and strong connection. So right away, it's about leaning into your support group. For those of you that have a support group, right? For those of you that may not necessarily feel like you have a support group, this channel definitely is a safe space for you. You can definitely reach out to me if you visit my website. And I do have a special, it's for twin flames, it's 1111. But if you didn't want to commit to a full personal reading, 1111 is $11.11, and it's about a 20-minute conversation we can have. And I also have resources for like guided meditation. So if you're interested in any of that, any of those resources, definitely send me an email, visit my website. Then the other thing is discipline, consistent effort, and order, right? So it's like you're here and you want to go to another another dimension. I'm hearing you want to progress, but you're not consistent with your efforts. So this card is like, yes, I know that your environment may be rough, right? Like there's lots of phases that are happening, things are coming in, things are leaving, things are changing, so many things are out of your control. 2 and 3 adds up to 5, and we know that 5 represent changes. So there are lots of changes happening internally and external towards you, but it's about being disciplined and being consistent with your efforts and your order. What is it that you want? Do you want to move out? So what does that look like? Right? Analyze the things that's required for you to move out. If you're going to go into an apartment, is it a particular security deposit or mover's fee or whatever the case may be, right? Like look at the practical and the logistics of it, what has to have be in place for you to be able to successfully complete that action, you know? And then we have love. So I think that it's so important for you to remember, like, to love yourself, right? She's hugging herself, her heart is beating out of her chest, she's blossoming. um Her hair is so thick and voluminous. I mean, everyone's hair is beautiful, but I'm mentioning it specifically on the love card because there's this idea of self-love and nourishing yourself and taking care of yourself, right? Wearing nice, pretty perfumes, like smelling the roses. Love, life's purpose. It had been coming through in some of my readings that some of you watching these videos are possibly going through a spiritual awakening, like a major shakeup of who you thought you were, into who you are. And I have been promising to do a spiritual awakening video, and I will. So for those of you right now that are feeling this shake up energy of just breaking down what you believed about yourself, breaking down the ideas and the perceptions that you were holding on to that didn't even belong to you, but you adopted them as your own and created your identity based on these external, right, perceptions. You're having this moment of clarity and realization of like, yeah, no, this is not it for me, this is not working for me, I'm not happy in this connection. I'm not happy showing up and being this way anymore to satisfy someone else. So being authentic with yourself and loving yourself and nurturing yourself is also very important in helping you align with the energy to move out, to move. For those of you that are wanting to take that step into the future, it's so important to align yourself with that energy right now, right? Work on it, not right now as in like this second it has to happen, but identifying those areas in which you are not, and changing it so that you are being consistent with your daily habits. So in this photo, she's also flexible. For some of you, it's like a matter of physically taking better care of yourself consistently. And the last 2 cards that came out are joy, pure happiness, and intuition. gut feeling and inner voice. So you you are being guided on what direction to go into. And for some of you, it could be that maybe there could be too much noise, or you're still like, because of that fear of I'm not sure if I could do this. I don't want to deal with the repercussions of what can happen if I decide to get a divorce. I don't want to deal with the guilt and the shame if I break up with this person. I'm not sure if I'm going to like the new job. Whatever the situation is, it's about taking a time out throughout your day, throughout your week, to get in a meditative state so you can allow your intuition to guide you. And joy, some of you could be a life path number 6 or number 2. Joy like reminds you that you deserve happiness, and happiness is within you, and happiness is around you. So for those of you that have pets, I'm getting like, your pet loves you. Very random message, but your pet loves you. And maybe just going out for a walk, taking your pet to the park. If you don't have a pet, then just you going out. And sometimes there are like other pets out there with people walking their pets. And point is to go out into nature, surround yourself. So there's lots of like scents that I'm picking up on: lavender, pink grapefruit. So maybe you want to get, if you don't have, or maybe somehow get some nice essential oils. Lavender is coming through strongly, and pink grapefruit, peach, some nice sweet aroma can definitely help to uplift your mood. So those are just a few things you can do to help you better align with the energy, to help you move out, to help you move on from a situation. We're gonna go a little bit deeper and get an elemental empath card. So I really like the elemental empath oracle because it goes so much more in depth into the situation, and then it lets you know like potential blocks. So even though like you may know this, or you may be trying this, like there's still sometimes potential blocks like keeps you stuck, keep you like, oh my god, what's worse, my past or my future, right? So the elemental empath offers advice to help you remove those blockages. And then I also just love the deck personally. I've used this deck for myself. I've used pretty much all of the deck for myself, but I truly enjoy this elemental empath. So let me just fix it real quick. So there's a couple of reversals, and I don't want to give you reversals. Let's just pause for a second. And that's important too, right? Pausing. You are in such a transformative place right now where you may be constantly thinking about what to do. You're constantly, what's the word I'm thinking of? Damn it. Give me a second. Like things are constantly coming to you, and you're constantly having to compartmentalize. That's not what I was looking. Transmute. You're constantly transmuting stuff because you're just dealing with too much right now, between work, between your kids, between your spouse, between your own trauma and wounds that are probably kicking up for you if you are going through a spiritual awakening, or it's just being triggered by your current environment. Either way, you're trying to keep a good head on your shoulders, and you're just feeling stuck. Sisterhood and community is definitely coming through. So for those of you that have sisters and you have a good relationship with them, this could definitely be a time for you to lean on their support. And for those of you that, if it's not like a relative sister, but it's just like a close friend, a loved one, a support group, it's definitely a good time for you to lean on their support. And purple, again, more purple is coming out. So repeating patterns came out. Awareness, what is the lesson? Break this cycle. I love that, right? So you're possibly stuck again in this situation because you haven't learned your lesson, right? So, and for most of you, you know what the lesson is, but are you willing to address your trauma? Are you willing to take accountability for why, and sorry to say this, but for why you attracted this situation and why you keep holding on to it? Also, with repeating patterns, if you see number patterns, so like if you happen to look at the time and you see a sequence of repeating numbers, so like 222, 1111, 141, anything like that, those are typically angel numbers, as you may or may not already know. And that is an opportunity for you to look up that angel number, because it's usually your angel guides communicating a message to you through that number. So you may already know what angel numbers are. If you do, if you don't, this message is a reminder that if you see those numbers come up, those repeating numbers, definitely take the time to search it and see what that angel number message is. Okay, repeating patterns is your card. What number is that? And speaking of 141, I had mentioned it as an example, and then when I opened the book, I opened the book on 141. So 141 could be very significant for those of you. I don't have my other phone handy, so I can't look it up, but I'll add it to the description box. And you too, I also recommend that you look it, because sometimes when different people look at the same number, they may get like a different message. So we have repeating patterns, which is two. So it's page 241, and then I accidentally went to 141 on that accidentally, because I think there's a message there for you. 241. Okay. We have patterns repeat to teach us something, and they keep repeating until we learn the lesson. They can take the form of past life patterns repeating now, ancestral traumas passed down, or patterns we have developed in this life that are on repeat. It can also be a combination of all of these. These repeating patterns work in many different ways, showing up again and again to see if we have learned what they're trying to teach us. If patterns keep showing up for you, ask yourself these questions. What is the lesson here? And why does this keep showing up? What am I holding on to that makes this pattern keep coming back? Is there something in my system that still needs to be processed? And finally, what do I, to your subconscious self, need in order to feel safe so I can let this go? So that's so important, because it's hard to step into the energy of what your future goals are if you haven't dealt with why you're being stuck in this pattern, if you haven't began to understand what it is that you need to feel safe for you to move into a new space. And we talked about it earlier before I began reading this book. Why are you in this situation? Why are you repeating this cycle? And no one's blaming anyone here. But it's important questions to ask yourself, and ask yourself with grace, and give yourself grace, because there are some lessons here. What are the lessons that I know that I need to learn and that I'm ready to break? Keep in mind that the lessons come in various forms, and only you can truly know what they are. A lesson might show you that even though experiences have taught you that you aren't good enough, it's time to take your power back and realize you are. Or maybe something you worked through comes back up just to see if you really learned and integrated the lesson. Perhaps it's coming up again because there's a deeper layer that needs processing, or maybe it is seeing if you will fall back into the old way of reacting. As Paulo Coelho said in his book, Warrior of Light, you've been through all of this before, but you've never been beyond it, right? So you've never been beyond that past being stuck. You've never been beyond moving into the future. Why? Because you're repeating patterns and not learning the lessons. So let's continue. Keep an eye out for these patterns and be careful not to jump too quickly to conclusions about what they're teaching you. So important too, and that's why I said, like, give yourself grace, because like your trauma can actually infiltrate like the intuitive guidance. So as you're asking yourself, as you're observing the patterns, you may have like a trauma response when you ask yourself, well, why is this happening? So it's important to have some space between observing and kind of like analyzing in a way. Like, so this is recommending like take time to ground, self-inquire, and connect with yourself to really understand what is going on. Like, don't put any limitations on yourself. Don't put any more like doubts on yourself or blame on yourself. Like, none of this is to blame or to criticize you. It's to help you to work through learning what the lesson is, which can be challenging, but not worth your time to blame yourself and beat yourself up during the process. Lastly, stay open to what forms these patterns can take. They can show up as mental thought patterns, emotional triggers that we repeatedly fall into, or situation we put ourselves into without realizing it. You might be stuck in a pattern. So these are like some of the blocks, right? So you might be stuck in a pattern that is unhealthy and keeps coming back. And you react in a similar way every time, unable to find a way out. If this is you, it's time to pause and observe the way you are reacting. Start to build awareness about yourself and the pattern and shift things from there. So, shifting things from within yourself. We talked earlier about all those external influences and changes. And so, this is a reminder, like, as you are observing yourself and inquiring yourself, as you're evaluating your patterns, how are you reacting? Right? What is your go-to when you realize you've been in this unhealthy pattern? Like, there's this ripple effect into like continuing to repeat it, having emotional triggers, having a physical trigger, maybe overspending, maybe I don't know, consuming more, I don't know, alcohol or sugar, or maybe sleeping more, maybe sleeping less. Like, how is it manifesting itself? And to be aware of it, right? But taking the time to pause and observe the way that you are reacting, and again start to build awareness about yourself and the pattern and shift things from there. So the more awareness you have about these continuous patterns, is the more ability you have to control it and shift and change. So here's an exercise to help. Write down a prevalent pattern in your life and the way you normally react. Include the different aspects of what usually happens and the beliefs you have gained about yourself, other people, and life from these experiences. If some things are too sensitive or traumatic, keep to the smaller ones, right? So not that you're not going to work on the extremely sensitive or traumatic things, but keep to the smaller ones. I'm going to finish reading, and then I can give you a personal example that's like a smaller one for me. That's not going to bring up a bunch of tears and emotions as I try to work through it. So now that you've identified this pattern, right? Now meditate on the feeling that comes up and observe. Connect with your true self and see if any insights arise. Because again, only you know, right? And that's the key to this. Only you know what the lesson is to be learned in your patterns. Connect with your true self and see if any insights arise. Ask for guidance, right? So intuition, asking for guidance. You can even ask from your sisterhood, your community, your support group. Ask for guidance and help. So this is why I truly love the elemental empath, because I personally like how it ties everything in. So the personal advice regarding a pattern that I have, it's like again, one that's not like too sensitive and traumatic, but still a pattern that manifests itself in ways that aren't great. So I sometimes will wake up and give myself only 15 minutes to get ready. And I don't know in what world I think that that's possible, but I'm rushing. I don't have time to buy lunch, and then I can't take a quick shower. Like I'm not even relaxed. I'm about to begin my day already, like somewhat stressed out. So I end up now I have to take an Uber. I don't have to, but I'm running late. So I take an Uber. So now I'm spending additional money that's not part of my budget. And because I didn't pack lunch, now sometimes I'm like getting something quick to eat, like Dunkin' Donuts. I mean, I love a hot chocolate from Dunkin' Donuts, a Boston cream donut, sometimes a glazed donut. I like a croissant. And it's like now I've saturated my body with a bunch of sugar and carbs for the morning. So I'm late, I'm stressed out, and now I pumped my body with sugar and carbs, which is going to manifest itself in like bloating or constipation. You know what I mean? Like it's just not anything that's good. So when I take a minute to like observe my pattern, like why am I choosing to stay in bed, why am I choosing to create this ripple effect of bad decisions. So the last week I did a lot better. It's been more than a week, but I've significantly improved where I'm giving myself almost like an hour and a half now to get ready, because I want to take my time. And not, I get that not everyone has the luxury of time, but it's finding ways in which it works the best that it can, that you're not creating more triggers by having to kind of overcompensate for what you missed because you were rushing. You didn't get a chance to make breakfast, so now you gotta pick up some garbage. So it's just little things like that, or making sure that like right now I'm really into drinking coconut water. It's just making sure that like no matter what, at least there may be a coconut water in my bag and some fruit, so I have a healthier alternative for breakfast than the last minute donut and cup of sugar, aka Dunkin' Donuts hot chocolate. So that's one example of a bad pattern that's not extremely sensitive or traumatic. Sometimes, when you are going, you are already going through this intense spiritual awakening, or you are already in this position of being so stuck. It may not be the best time right now to like pick something that's going to be extremely sensitive or traumatic. And again, you're not suppressing anything, but there are lots of patterns here that you can choose from. There are lots of lessons here to be learned. So go easy on yourself, because as you know, I think, what is it when you would do homework, they would say do the easier one first, get it out the way, so then you can focus all your attention on the harder ones later. And in a sense, as you continue to do the work on the less sensitive patterns, you do start to build the resilience and the stamina and that discipline which makes navigating everything else later on a lot more easier.